ಕಾಣಿಸ್ತಿದೆ ಸರ್.
ಕಾಣಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದೆ.
Good evening all. Myself Deepeshri. Today I am going to say about sulfur cycle. This is the introduction of sulfur cycle, key phases of sulfur cycle, economic importance of sulfur cycle, impact of human activities on sulfur cycle. Sulfur is one of the components that make up proteins and vitamins and hormones. Proteins consist of amino acids that contain sulfur atoms. Sulfur is important for the functioning of proteins and enzymes in plants and in animals that depend upon plants for sulfur. Plants absorb sulfur when it is dissolved in water. Animals consume these plants so that they have enough sulfur to maintain their health. The majority of the Earth's sulfur is stored underground in rocks and minerals, including as sulfate salts buried deep within ocean sediments. Sulfur can also be found in the atmosphere. This is the sulfur cycle. Sulfur cycle begins with the weathering of rocks, releasing the stored sulfur. The sulfur then comes into contact with air, where it is converted into sulfate. The sulfate is taken up by plants and microorganisms and is converted into organic forms. Animals then consume these organic forms through foods they eat, thereby moving the sulfur through the food chain. As organisms die and decompose, some of the sulfur is again released as a sulfate and some enters the tissues of natural sources that emit sulfur directly into the atmosphere, including volcanic eruptions, the breakdown of organic matter in the evaporation of water. The key phases of sulfur cycles are decompositions of organic compounds, oxidations of hydrogen sulfide to elemental sulfur, oxidation of elemental sulfur, reductions of sulfates. These are the steps: decompositions of organic compounds, oxidations of oxidations of elemental sulfur, reductions of sulfates. The economic importance of sulfur. Of tons of sulfur are manufactured primarily for the production of sulfuric acid, which has widespread industrial applications. Because of its propensity to operate as an oxidizing or reducing agent, sulfur is directly involved in the formations of fossil fuels and the majority of metal deposits. One of the limiting considerations for the concentrations of precious metals in a source is the presence or absence of sulfur. The impact of human activities on sulfur cycle. The global sulfur cycle is greatly influenced by human activity due to the combustions of coal, natural gas, and fossil fuels. The amount of sulfur in the atmosphere and ocean has greatly increased. In addition, the sedimentary rock sink has been depleted. Without the influence of humans, sulfur would stay held in rocks for millions of years until it was uplifted by tectonic activity and then released by weathering, and it is currently being excavated and burned at an alarming rate. Sulfate depositions has increased by a factor in regions of the planet. Since the beginning of the 20th century, coal and petroleum have been extracted at such a rapid rate that the world sulfur flow has doubled. Thank you, sir.